Welcome to the Reimagined Energy Podcast. In this remix episode on climate action, we're bringing together voices from across Atlantic Canada who are tackling one of the biggest challenges of our time. From municipal leaders driving bold climate plans to educators helping communities make sense of sustainability to organizations shifting everyday behaviors. This conversation explores how collective action is reshaping our path to net zero. Tell everyone about your role. You're the manager of clean electricity. So what is that? What are some of the key initiatives that you're working on?
Okay, so as you said, I'm the manager of clean electricity at the Department of Energy. It has many functions, but just to say that the major function is really working on developing energy resources in the province. And so we're focusing a lot on those local clean and renewable sources in the province like wind and solar.
Mhm.
Everyone knows that we have a lot of it. I think everybody experiences very windy days. And
We're
so,
windy here.
yeah,
Yeah.
so windy.
Yeah.
So we really believe that now is the right time to put those resources to work.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of benefits. So they help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But usually when we are going into contracts for solar and wind, we go into very long-term 25-year contracts, and those usually have very stable prices. So they really
Mhm.
help with that affordability angle, helping people save money on their energy bills while also bringing in new industry and jobs into the province. So a major initiative that we have at the department is the 2030 Clean Power Plan. And
Mhm.
so is a combination of different types of technology, including solar and wind, that helps us to build a reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy system. And the
Mhm.
major goal of the Clean Power Plan is that we want to hit 80% of renewable energy for electricity by 2030. And so the Clean Power Plan also feeds into the broader climate plan in Nova Scotia, our climate, our future strategy as well. And under the Clean Power Plan, we have three major pillars. So we have phasing out coal and bringing in new generation, which is
Yeah.
also what I mentioned about. We want to expand our energy sources for solar, for
Mhm.
example, solar for residential or commercial or industrial customers. We also want to bring in more new wind projects into the province. The exciting thing is that construction is already happening for a lot of this. It's not that we want to do it, but it's
Right.
already started, which
That's
is
awesome.
fantastic. It's awesome. And so
Yeah.
construction is going to um, go underway until 2030. At the same time, we also still have our hydro imports from the maritime link. And the combination of all these, as I said, it really just helps us to have access to more affordable energy
Mhm.
sources. We also then have the reliability and resilience part, which I think doesn't really come out so much when we're talking about new wind and solar, but is very much part of the plan. And so the reliability and resilience is just with all these new energy sources coming onto our grid, we want to make sure that we're able to have lights even during peak winter, very cold periods. And we also want to make sure that even during extreme weather events, there's limits on when the lights go off or how long the lights go off.
Right.
So part of that is the transmission, the regional transmission intertie between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. And so we have this 345 kV reliability intertie, which should be built up until 2029. And then
Cool.
we also have our coal plants. So yes, we want to phase out coal, but we also
Yes.
want to make sure that we have flexible power sources for very high demand periods. So some of those coal plants will be converted into gas or other flexible fuel sources as well.
Cool.
And then the last part of the clean power plan is really making sure that our grid is modern, smart, and that we're able to manage load. One of the recent exciting projects is 3 4 hour 50 megawatts battery facilities that are going to be put in Bridgewater, in White Rock and Waverly. And these projects are owned by NS Nova Scotia Power and WMA.
Hmm.
They should be in place by 2026. So they're going to act as a backup during, when the sun is not always shining, when the wind is not always blowing. We're able to store excess energy into those storage facilities, and they act as a backup. And then another thing is also a lot of the programs run by Efficiency Nova Scotia, which is our efficiency utility here in Nova Scotia. So those
Hmm.
really help us also with smart grid management and load management and grid modernization. And so, yeah, all this is part
Wow.
of our initiatives in the Clean Power Plan. I know it sounds very ambitious, but one of the major things for us is that it is doable. And so it is already being done. We are doing it. Most of the
Yeah.
pillars that are needed to implement the Clean Power Plan are in progress or will be in progress soon. And
Hmm.
as of 2024, already 40.5% of our energy in the province comes from renewable energy sources.
So, what shifts have you seen in the past 10 years in the energy sector?
Well, it's been interesting, as the world kind of wakes up to the impacts of burning fossil fuels.
Yeah.
We're seeing that, renewables and clean energy sources, including nuclear, are really becoming much more accepted
Hmm.
and mainstream. So, although I've been working in the nuclear industry for the last 15 years, we're just seeing a lot more activity. And so, over the last 5 years, I've been working on the Advanced Reactor Development Program. And we are just, the world is starting to see that, we can't get to net zero with renewables alone.
Hmm.
And when you look for baseload power, nuclear is it. So we're seeing a huge shift towards nuclear energy.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Because also energy demand is growing, with the use of electric vehicles on the market. There's a lot more drain or strain on the way that energy is being consumed. What needs to happen to prepare for the future?
Yes, there's a lot in front of us, and I think the good news is the technology's there.
Hmm.
And so we all really need to just lean in together and understand how to use the existing technology. We're looking at, there's been many workshops happening across Canada to look at how to get to net zero by 2050. And most of those workshops are showing that electricity requirements are going to, double or 2.5 times that of what we have today.
Wow.
And so how do we prepare for that? We need to actually look at all of the tools in our toolbox. We need to look to wind, solar, hydro, nuclear, the four key existing technologies for clean energy, and we need to look at storage and newer technologies like geothermal and biofuels.
Interesting. How do we include, the average person in the energy conversation? Like, is it educators? Is it curriculum? What energy means.
It's so important that we all have this conversation. I'm probably not the person that gets invited to dinner parties sometimes because maybe I want to talk about energy a little too often.
Oh, I'd love to
But
have
it's
you.
so important that we all understand, where's our energy coming from? And when we don't have it, that's when
Right?
we think about it. It's like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
goodness, when is it coming back on?
Yeah.
But it's, for all of us to lean into the conversation about how do we get to net zero by 2050? How do we actually all work together for a solution? We all need to understand what's involved, and so I think up until recently, the energy conversation has been left with those engineers and scientists and energy strategy people, um, probably to the detriment of understanding for everyone to understand what does it take to have clean energy into your home, into your lives, into your hospitals and your schools and your industries. And so we're trying to shift that. We have been bringing educators to the station for a conversation around energy. What does energy, look like? How do we get it? And then we take them for it, a walk through the nuclear power plant to say, this is what nuclear power really looks like. It's not really maybe what you imagine. It's clean. It is, pristine, really. And that's one of the comments we typically get from the educators is, didn't realize how clean this was going to be. And so we want them to understand this is how energy is made. This is what it really looks like when you're in the power plant. And these are all of the operators that work here, high degree of professionalism. Nuclear safety culture is, like the most important thing at the nuclear power plant. And so we want them to understand, you can see a windmill and you can see a solar panel
Right.
on a rooftop, but you don't often get a chance to actually see a nuclear power plant and what's involved. And also, taking people to see a coal fire plant or a hydro plant. It's important for people to see, okay, this is where my power is made. And then it gets transmitted to the lines and then it makes it to my home. We often think of the line and the home,
Right.
not necessarily the plant where it's actually coming from. Yeah,
That's
that's
correct.
important.
It is, definitely. Where does diversity inclusion fit into the climate change conversation?
As I said a little earlier, oftentimes we've left the energy conversation with those professionals, the engineers and the scientists and the energy strategists, and it hasn't really served us that well. We are still struggling with having more women in energy production.
Mhm.
When I joined, MD Power back in 1989, very few women were operators. Very few women were, electrical engineers and civil engineers, mechanical engineers. The engineering has gotten, we've been getting higher numbers, but we're still only at about 18 to 20%
Hmm.
women in the nuclear or in the energy industry. And so we
Yes.
need to improve on that. But I believe, and I'm biased, of course, because I'm a woman, but I believe we need more women in the conversation because, we're gonna have a different conversation. Women typically will be looking to the future of their children and their grandchildren, and what does this mean for my family? Men do
Yeah.
too, but women tend to be a little bit more focused on the future generations, and
Mhm.
definitely Indigenous people are focused on 7 generations out. And so we've been trying to do our environmental studies from an Indigenous lens. We've been trying really hard to have an Indigenous inclusion aspect to all of the work we do. Indigenous women, when you get that mixture and you have those conversations, it's just a different conversation. We need to have all of them. We need to have all of the conversations, and we all need to trust that we're all in this together and we're working together for future generations.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that one. In your How does the community energy investment plan, how does it help guide, the transition to clean energy? And what is this investment plan?
Yeah, so this is like kind of the report, the template, if you will, that lays out all the opportunities for the town.
Hmm.
So it's everything from working towards greener budgets, so thinking more EVs, less town gas vehicles for the town, looking
Hmm.
at life cycle costs instead of just the purchasing price like we do for most tenders, right? So it's
Right.
looking at the longer term implications of those things. It's lays out the ideas and opportunities for innovative financing models. So PACE is one of those. And then how do you kind of do PACE on steroids, right? So
Right.
we've done that in collaboration with the FCM and other orders of government to make sure that we can offer low interest financing. Um, and it's how it's the document that kind of guides us to get people into more energy efficient
Mm.
and cheaper ways to operate their home.
Right.
The other part of it that is really the best part of it, I think, that kind of removes that "what's in it for me" argument that we tend to see when we talk about some social programs or services. You always have a group that says, "Well, I don't need them, so why should I pay for them as a
Right.
taxpayer?" Is
Hmm.
that the CEIP, the Community Energy Investment Plan, lays out the economic benefit, right? So if we can lower people's costs, that money stays in the local economy, gets redistributed to local businesses, and it's worth many, many millions of dollars just in our small town.
Amazing. That is really interesting because so many people in this profession are engineers, or they have a technical science type
Hmm.
background, mathematical, that type of thing. But there is an industry for in this sector for people like us who
Yeah.
because people need to be educated, people need to learn, and you don't have to have a science degree and an engineering degree to do it. So that's great to hear. So what advice would you give to somebody who is thinking about getting into this industry? Who's not, scientifically inclined as much.
I would say whatever your interests are, they fit into this industry. There's so much potential in, like sustainability, whether it's resource conservation, whether it's energy efficiency, whether it's like architecture, whatever you can think of, we have it on the side of the sustainability side. And it's pretty cool because when I talk to people about like green careers, for example, we talk about what are your interests? What do you like to do? If you like being outdoors, have you ever considered something that's in sustainability with outdoor? Like you could be a horticulturalist, for example. If you like computers, have you ever considered like making things that are like the future? Like, so maybe like like how there's Google Homes. I'm always like, if you're like really interested in things like that, maybe you can create something that reminds people, hey, don't forget to turn off the lights or whatever. There's now like smart thermostats, stuff like that. So anything you are interested in can somehow fit into this world.
Great to hear. Think Will Shift. You do a lot of work within schools and with school children, talking to youth. And how's that been? How's that been working out as you educate them to climate change?
It's pretty awesome. Kids are fantastic. Kids have a whole different perspective on life that I wish adults could just keep. Like, I remember being a child and just being excited about everything. And then, as you age and adulthood kicks in and all the stresses of adulthood kick in, we let go of that like childlike free spirit, and we get tainted, right? But kids are just so free, and so speaking to them about such important topics is necessary because they get it. I wish someone had talked to me about stuff like this when I was younger, because then I would have made very different choices in my, as I was like in my teens and my young adult life. But I didn't know any better. So, imagine how many people could have known, right?
Well, their enthusiasm is contagious as well. They take it home to their parents or their, people in their families, and they share what they just learned, and they've got that enthusiasm that, teach. Kids have a lot to teach people. They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So behavioral change. It's all about that. And I guess there's some sort of science behind that. But what does behavioral change look like in terms of making that shift?
It's like I mentioned a little earlier, it's all about giving them a small step at a time, and like giving people gradual growth. You don't want to just dump all this information onto someone. It's too much. Like the world is so, like I say it all the time to all my friends and coworkers, like we now live in a world that has way too much information. Literally at the click of a button, you have all this information. There's Wikipedia, there's Google, there's all this stuff that's just throwing information at you. You turn on the TV, on the news, there's more information being thrown at you. And there's just like an overload of information for people. So when we're trying to like give people that behavior change around sustainability, we don't want to overload them with information around it. Like we're not giving them the high grade star level of this is where you need to be right away. We're not talking about any of that, right? We're starting right at the bottom. Like I said about like, okay, do you take shorter showers? Have you ever considered it? And then we give them other facts they wouldn't know. Things like, oh, did you know that if you were boiling water, if you put the lid on the pot, it actually boils the water faster, meaning that you reduce the amount of time that your stove is on and all this
Really?
stuff.
I never knew that.
Yeah, I know. It's a pretty interesting fact. But we give that to people so that they can start gradually learning more and more and more and be more receptive to this information. Because if you give them overload, that's just like someone's going to check out. Like, eventually they're going to be like, this is too much for me.
That's not for me.
And also we live in a microwave society that's like everything has to be done right now. So people kind of like freak out when it's like, oh my gosh, you telling me I have like 10 months to do all this stuff? It's too much. So like we try to like gradually give them like, information.
That's it for this remix episode of the Reimagined Energy Podcast. Today's discussion reminded us that climate action isn't just about technology or policy, it's about people. Every decision, every conversation, and every step matters. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with others who care about building a cleaner and more resilient future. Thanks for listening, and let's keep reimagining what's possible together. I'm your host, Maria McGowan, and we'll see you next time.